Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan.
Right, so I need to make sure I present this information in a particular order because there are certain things I need to talk about here that may seem totally off the wall. But please do stick with me. So I'm sure you've all heard the news, and in this video I'm going to break down what I think may be happening behind closed doors, or what may have happened behind closed doors, should I say. Now, I honestly wasn't going to make this video at one point because of the puzzle pieces I started to put together. They were presenting me with a rather off-the-wall picture. And I found that the more I followed this thought process through, the more it actually made sense. So I thought, you know, why not? I'll put my crazy theory out there, because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure there's someone else out there that agrees with me. And I'm pretty sure that's why you all subscribe to the channel in the first place. There are going to be a lot of videos discussing what people think's happening with Queen Elizabeth and her death. However, I can almost assure you that no one's going to be approaching it from this angle. So first things first, let's just get the basic number stuff out of the way. Her husband, Philip, died at 99 on the 99th day of the year. Now, Queen Elizabeth died at 96, which is just two nines with one inverted, like 99. And the worldwide coverage of her death began on 9/9, which is again 99. So there are a lot of 9s and 6s all over the place here. They are the same number, just an inversion of each other. In previous videos, I've spoken about Satanism, and specifically Anton LaVey's system, and how they love the number 6 and the number 9. Number 9 because it is the number of the ego, and it is seen as the most selfish number. And by that I mean selfish in the sense that it always returns to itself. I've gone over this before, but I'll do it again quickly. Any number multiplied by 9 always reduces back to 9. Right, so this is where this idea of selfishness comes from. And when you look at the alphabet, the 9th letter is I. So you can see how this link to the self and the ego has been made. Now, like I said, 9 is an inverted 6, and we all know they love to use 666. Well, we're in a 666 carbon-based body. So we have these 2 points of reference where we see the 6 and the 9 both relating back to the body or man, in one sense through its connection to carbon, and in the other sense the mathematical properties of 9 in light of the 9th letter as I. So this is why they love the 9 and 6. I mean, there are other reasons, but these are the main two that I think are the most important for the conversation at hand. So more numbers. A fellow subscriber sent me a message yesterday and told me that her death was actually announced 911 days after the World Health Organization announced Corona as a pandemic. I mean, I don't really need to explain this number here. Everybody knows about 9/11. We've spoken about it extensively on this channel. Just remember that 9 times 11 also brings us back to that number 99 again. Her death was also announced 77 years and 7 days after the end of World War II. Again, think back to my previous video where I explained about 77. The Boris resignation BS was all tied up with 77s, as was the 7/7 London bombing. And here again we have the same number popping up. So as you can see, when I say they don't stray from patterns, I'm really telling the truth. And just to add to the 777, considering that it is 77 years and 7 days after World War II, 777 is all Crowley philosophy. This was Queen Elizabeth's 70th year of rulership, so again that's just another 7. Now, all of these numerical links may or may not come as a surprise to you, depending on how much you know about Gematria, how much you've studied, how many videos you've watched. Honestly, it comes to a point with this stuff where you realise that every major event is planned down to a T. So I've always tried to use these numbers to find out what's actually going on behind closed doors, rather than just making a load of links for no real reason. And that is a theme I hope is consistent in all of my work, as I've always favoured the more scholarly approach to this type of information, given that this type of information has always received such a negative response, given how it's presented under the title of conspiracy theories and whatnot, tinfoil hats and all that silliness. Right, so let's get into this, what I actually think happened. Right, so we know the Queen is not human, okay? That we can all agree on, so much so to the point where she actually, during her live 2016 birthday performance, she shapeshifted so hard on live TV that it forced the royal correspondence to momentarily release this message that I've put on screen, and I'll pause it so you can read it. This message essentially admitted that she is not a human. It was only up for a few seconds before it was taken down. However, you can check the HTML link. It was a government website and they just hoped that nobody saw it. But unfortunately, you know, we did. Now, these beings that we're talking about, they like to swap avatars every 100 or so years because, as we know, more than anybody else, this body becomes old and decrepit. Bearing in mind that it is our soul that's infinite, the bodies are finite. Remember as well, this race of beings are known to be body snatchers. It's part of what they do. And if you've seen the movie They Live, you've heard about the virile parasite rituals, which tie into my black eye video that I'm currently in the process of making a second part of, then you know what I'm talking about. So when we say that Queen Elizabeth is dead, first of all, what we need to realise is her body may be gone, but the entity that was residing in that body has simply moved along to the next host, which brings me nicely along to my next point. One Liz in, one Liz out. Let me explain this. If you remember a few videos ago, I showed you how the number 47 is tied to Queen Elizabeth through various life events and various iterations of her name. If you haven't seen that video, go and watch it because I'm not going over all of them in this video, but I will touch on a few. One thing I will mention though is if you've had the news on over the past few days, you will see that they keep playing a clip from one of the most famous speeches that the Queen ever done. It was from her 21st birthday, and of course she made this speech in 1947. So let's talk about the new PM. Her name just happens to be Liz, or Elizabeth. Well, in fact, her name's actually Mary, but apparently she chose from a young age to identify with her middle name. Wonder why. Now, Liz and Elizabeth both sum to 47, which I've spoken about before. But what's more is that Liz is actually now 47 years of age, so this ritual is happening quite literally at the perfect time. Now, when they announced that she was PM, they kept making a particular point to mention that she was the 15th PM under Queen Elizabeth. And at first my reaction was, well, okay, that makes sense, more encoded news, because 47 is the 15th prime. Makes sense. And both Lizzies are attached to this number 47. And a few days ago, they released a statement from the King addressing the death of Queen Elizabeth. And this was tweeted at 7:04, which again is 74 or 47. And I mentioned in the last video that the Queen and now the King Philip, got married on the 20th of November 1947. And the shorthand date of that is 20/11, which brings us back to 211, which is the 47th prime. So she got married in 47 on the 47th prime date. Like I said, 47's all over her. And to top that off, died 77 days before their 74th wedding anniversary. Everything about this relationship is encoded numerically down to a T. I mean, they even met in 1939. That says it all, really, don't it? Right, so when Liz popped up to be PM, in this PM race with Rishi Sunak and all them other mugs, I saw all these connections to the Queen, but I didn't really think much of it, to be honest. But given that she recently died, I'm starting to think that there may be a little more going on here. And I say this because, as most of you know, if you're from the UK, once you get voted in as PM, you have to go and meet the Queen at some point. Well, Liz met Liz 2 days before she passed on the 6th of September. Okay, now the 6th of September shorthand is 6/9, which is 69 or 96. And I'm sure you're aware the Queen died at 96. Not only that, but Liz graduated from Merton College, which is in Oxford Uni, in 1996. Now the logo for Merton College is the 8-pointed star, and that is something we've discussed extensively on this channel. However, I will let you know that this symbol does actually have another name, and that is the Star of the Ilu. Notice the Queen also sports this in various different images, and we will get more into the Star of the Ilu in a different video. but just for now, know that Merton College rocks the 8-pointed star. So Liz met Liz on the 6th of the 9th, which, as I said, is 9/6, the same age as when the Queen died. Now, we all know, as I mentioned earlier, that the royal family, specifically the Queen, are not human beings, and we actually had this confirmed in the 2016 post that I showed you. In light of this, I honestly think that there might be some kind of soul transference or body jumping going on here when both Liz and Liz got together on the 6th of September. Not only because it ended up being on that particular date, which coincided with the age that she died, but also because Queen Elizabeth, soul transference ritual, the Lizard Queen, and Lizard Lizzie all sum to 69 or 96. Soul transference, soul transferred, and soul transference ritual all sum to 69 and 96, which again is the day that they both met and the age that she died at. They also show the 93, which is again a number tied to Saturn and reptilians, and I just told you that the Queen met Philip in 39, which is a reverse of 93. Windsor also sums to 93. Now, when we break down the word Elizabeth, we get L, lizard, Beth. L means Lord, lizard means reptilian, and Beth means birth. Think Bethlehem, as in the birthplace of Jesus. So Elizabeth is L, lizard, birth, and of course that also sums to 69. Now, the thing about 69 is that typically, symbolically speaking, is seen as two people or two separate entities due to the shape of the numbers. This is why we have the sexual position based on this number. But in light of what we're talking about here, the transference of two souls, 69 seems to draw a new meaning. Look at this image I drew out to try and explain what I'm talking about here. The number 69 literally looks like two souls passing from one to another, bearing in mind that the glyph for the soul is a circle. Now, we know that Queen Elizabeth died on the 8th of September, and this is the 251st day of the year, and it leaves 114 days left. And I've showed you numerous examples on this channel where events are encoded, along with how many days we are into the year or how many days are left. For instance, in the start of this video, I mentioned that her husband Philip died on the 99th day of the year at 99. Okay, so we know these numbers have relevance. QE died with 114 days remaining in the year. Transfer the Queen's soul also sums to 114. One more thing I wanted to mention is that the 8th of September is also 89. Soul switching ritual sums to 89. I'll just leave that on the screen for a second, let that sink in. One more thing. Bearing in mind the connections I'm talking about to 47, her age, the names, the marriage, Elizabeth Truss is Queen Elizabeth, sums to 447, which again does not really need any explanation given what we are discussing. Before I end this, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it's an idea that I'm still working through, so just bear with me if it's not entirely fleshed out, okay? So over here in the UK, we rarely get lightning storms, okay? I mean, very, very rarely. Now, when somebody's elected to be PM in the UK, they have to obviously go and meet the Queen at some point, as we've discussed that Liz did. Well, Boris did this as well, and it just so happens that on both of these nights, when both of these new PMs were elected, and for the following days in the UK, we had severe thunderstorms. Now, I know this might seem like a complete coincidence, two severe thunderstorms both happening when two PMs are elected and meet the Queen, but this type of weather just happens so rarely in the UK, especially to this degree, that I almost refuse to believe that it's a coincidence. So I've had this thought in the back of my mind for a while, and then it clicked the other day. I was just sitting there, and it was like, boom, God of Thunder is Bow, of course. And I knew that, I just didn't make the connection at the time. Now this hits even harder when you realise that the Queen died at Balmoral, the name of her family castle. Now, we've not really spoken about the significance and the symbolism of thunder on this channel because there is just so much to discuss, but we will get to it. However, what I will say in this video is that electric shocks and lightning symbolism is typically used in Hollywood to denote or signal electroshock treatment therapy, which is one of the many processes subjects are put through during mind fracture programs. Think of AC/DC, Harry Potter, David Bowie's Alter Ego, Ziggy Stardust, who had the lightning bolt on his face. It's also why lightning and mind control both sum 255, because they go hand in hand. And you can see this symbolism clearly being displayed at the 2022 VMA Awards during Nicki Minaj's performance, because it starts her, the performance starts off with her acting really normal with like a blue lit background, and then thunder flashes. The lights change to a rapid, awful, flashing pink that would just give you an epileptic fit if you had epilepsy. And the blue lit background disappears. Nikki starts to act in like a totally different demeanor, absolutely off key and demonic. And this is obviously her altar manifesting as the thunder comes. And you can see the change. I'll put the link in the description. They even went so far as to act out a mock torture scene once she switched altars, where we see Nikki basically slit the throat of one of these dancers. Again, this is all hinting to the stuff that goes on in these MK programs and these mind fracture programs. Now, my thought process from here is that maybe this lightning in the UK is a byproduct of some kind of ritual, maybe even some kind of soul scalping ritual. I think it's interesting that both soul removal program and electroshock treatment sum to 88 constellations in the sky, and there was lightning in the sky. We've touched on soul scalping before, and I'm currently in the process of making the next part to the video. But what I will mention from the upcoming video is that Black Eye and Soul Scalp match in 2 ciphers, and I think this is very telling. And check this footage I found of Boris online. Now, of course, this has been debunked, and people have said that the video has been edited and it's false, but I mean, you can take from that what you want. I know these guys have the tech to cover up, you know, this black eye very easily in a live press conference, so we wouldn't see it from our end. And I know sometimes this tech does foul, and you can find tons of examples of this online. So far we haven't seen Liz with any black eyes, but yeah, I don't know, man, it's all a bit fishy to me. Alright, I'm going to wrap this up now because I need to carry on working on my next tumbling and ciphering video. Bottom line, I think Liz is Liz. No other way I can say it. We know that Liz Truss has been fractured because nobody who gets into this type of position hasn't been, so it might be a case that whatever entity was in Queen Elizabeth has now been placed into one of Liz Truss's altars, or the entity that's took over her has just walked in on her entire system. Either way, it's super fishy, and Queen Elizabeth may be dead, but whatever being was inside her is not dead, I can assure you. And I'll leave you with this video. Just think about what I've been talking about, yeah, and listen to this speech. Next video will be out soon.
Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed. She was the very spirit of Great Britain, and that spirit will endure.